Hello and welcome to Ibuzz. I'm your host Nosheen Bukhari with some exciting and entertaining news from showbiz world. First things first, let me quickly take you to the top stories of the day. Olivia Rodrigo's debut album hits #1 on Billboard 200 album chart. Sony boss Teases SpiderMan and Venom crossover office. HBO Max outage mars Mayor of Easttown masterpiece finale. Sinead O'Connor revisits Pope picture SNL controversy. And A Quiet Place Part 2 becomes biggest pandemic-era U.S. box office. And now moving to the top story of the day. Sony executive Sanford Panich has teased there is actually a plan to tie Tom Holland's MCU Spider-Man to their Spider-Verse spin-off. Back in the 90s, Marvel sold the film rights to Spider-Man and his associate characters to Sony Pictures. To have more discussion on this, we have Jarvis, who is an entertainment journalist and an actor. Mark, welcome to the show.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
So, Mark, the partnership between the two studios briefly fell through in 2019. Even back in 2017, Sony's Amy Pascal claims for the deal, which was not clear, and it ended up muddying the waters. Do you think this partnership will work this time over Spider-Man?
Yeah, well, I feel like they've got some sort of plan in place, because from all the articles that I've read online, it seems like for a while they've been trying to sort something, but it seems like they've already put something in motion. But it sounds like when the next Spider-Man film gets released, we'll kind of find out a little bit more about what it is exactly that they're planning to do. And how they're putting the wheels in motion effectively and starting the journey towards hopefully mixing two of the major characters.
Right. And also, to the fans' shock and fury, Tom Holland has been removed from the franchise. In your opinion, how badly this is going to affect the fan base, knowing the fact that Tom had been leading the Spider-Man franchise since 2014?
Yeah, it's a massive move. It's a huge move because obviously Tom Holland's been brilliant and I think he's been great. But I think there's been a number of really good Spider-Mans, and Tom Holland has obviously done an incredible job. But I think it really depends on who replaces him, because obviously everyone's going to be gutted now, and Tom is amazing. He's going to have an amazing career doing whatever he does next. But if they get somebody else in who everyone loves, then very quickly people will move on. And you've got to remember as well, this is like a massive character, Spider-Man, and people really are fans of the franchise itself. And I think people will eventually get over the fact that it's not Tom Holland and that it is someone else, because otherwise they're not going to be able to watch Spider-Man.
But do you think that there can be a possibility of bringing Tom Holland back? What if the new character or the new actor is not very welcomed, because people have become choosier when it comes to Marvel?
I think that depends on contracts, to be honest. I think it's a very difficult one, because obviously I'm an actor myself as well, but I think it depends on, because especially if he's leaving the Spider-Man role for whatever reason, and somebody else is taking over, it depends what he signs on to next. He might go on to another franchise, he might get tied down for several films, and also the new person coming in, they will probably get tied down to a number of films as well, taking over the Spider-Man role, because they want the fans to get to know that person. And yeah, that's right, they might not be as popular for the first film, but I'm sure the fans will grow to love whoever it is.
Right. The teaser of Venom has given a slight glimpse of Spider-Man, leaving the fans imagining the two characters to be seen together. I would like to know your take on that.
What a film that would be. Could you imagine Spider-Man and Venom together in the same film? Especially if it's still Tom Hardy, because I love Tom Hardy, especially as Venom. He's just unbelievable. But I want to know, I want to know more. I want to know when. I want to know how long we have to wait for it. They've said in the next film that comes out with Spider-Man that we will find out more, which I believe is called No Way Home. It's out later this year. And I think their plan is in motion, but currently we're not allowed to find out too much more until we see that film. But that apparently is going to give us a lot of hints in terms of the direction that they're going in with it. So I mean, fingers crossed, but I mean, we obviously don't know because there must be so much, and obviously Marvel and Sony have got to work together to try and make this deal work. But I mean, what a film it will be! It'd be so good, wouldn't it?
Right, and also now that it has been officially declared that Venom will not be a part of the MCU, still we see a connection between Venom and one of the Marvel characters. So how surprising and confusing is that at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it is, but I think with these things you kind of just got to accept the fun that is like the make believe world, because like with the MCU, I mean, obviously we've not experienced anything like that in real life, but the characters are so amazing. And yeah, all right, so he's not part of the MCU or anything like that, but you know, I love the character. I love like all of those types of films, and I think any action that we get from any of them is great. Yes, it might be confusing in terms of like where they fit within the worlds, but they're all just brilliant characters. So to have them in any film, I think, is great. In terms of it being confusing, I think maybe for certain people who are like super Marvel fans, they might be slightly confused. But for me, as just like an actor and as a film fan in general, I think the characters are just great. So I'm happy to see them whenever I can.
Right. Right, and Mark, 3 releases from the Venom franchise have been lined up, including Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Morbius, and Kraven the Hunter. How much potential do you see in Venom's character standing on its own as a franchise without being included in the MCU characters?
I think there's massive, but I think with each individual, you know, MCU character that they're created in the first place, I think there's so much they can do, but also they can create storylines, they can create kind of trilogies with that, and if there's 3 films, then that will be great. And I'm sure they will have things in place for each of those films to keep the fans wanting to come back. There might be cliffhangers, there could be anything. And I know Kraven the Hunter is going to be played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is obviously another massive MCU actor. So I'm sure a lot of fans will be really anticipating to see that film. And I'm sure that they'll have loads of other tactics in place to keep the fans coming back as well.
Right, and in your opinion, do you think that the MCU and Sony Spider-Man spin-offs can indeed connect well together?
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I mean, the cast they've got are already amazing. Yeah, they might have someone else than Tom Holland, but I mean, the fans have been wanting it for so long, so I'm sure that at some point they will manage to bring the 2 together, because it's what everyone wants. And in terms of, you know, the big dogs at the picture houses, ultimately it's a money spinner, and if they can get the money out of it, then they'll make it, you know.
Right, and do you also expect a shuffle in the cast, especially the main cast, when we talk about Venom, just the way there were experiments done with Spider-Man?
I don't know, actually. That's a really good question. I think Tom Hardy is so good that they'd be kind of in danger if they replaced him. However, again, it depends on contracts. I think it depends how many films he's signed on to. It depends if he wants to do it as well. You know, he's a brilliant actor. I'm sure he's got loads of other offers too. But it's such a good character, and I think, you know, like with the Tom Holland and Spider-Man thing, I think a lot of us have fallen in love with Tom Hardy as Venom. So it'll be interesting. But I think if anyone's going to carry it through a number of films as a standalone character, it will be him. So if they change it up, it'll be interesting to see who they go with. But I reckon they'll stick with Tom.
Right. Mark, since you're also an actor, so I would like you to answer me the next question that I'm about to ask. Being an actor, why is it that now the contracts are more respected rather than the viewers' choices? We have seen this happening with DC, you know, experimenting with their characters when, you know, the characters that they brought, the new actors that they brought, they were not welcomed by the viewers. So eventually they had to go back to the old actors. But this is not happening in MCU. So why is it that having a huge fan base, still we see lesser respect to the viewer's choice, and contract is respected more? So why is it so?
Well, I mean, I think in anything the contract has to be respected, because, you know, you sign a contract and then that's a contract. This was binding, like, legal form. But I think in terms of the fans' choice, I think a lot of the time they are respected. But I think in terms of the contract, if they've signed on for like 3 films, then, you know, it has to take a serious reason for them to change it. And I'm sure if there was a massive fan overhaul, then they would have a conversation together and go, actually, yeah, let's just void this contract. But in terms of, like they've got money involved, they've been offered 3 films, so they're going to sign for 3 films. They're going to want to do the films, and I think, to a certain extent, if they want that actor that badly in the first place, they have to really make the right choice. If they don't make the right choice, and sometimes people go, actually, we want the old person back, then fair enough. And if they're available, then there is a way around it, and maybe they can say, right, okay, well, we're going to bring the old person back, and then we're going to give you something else, another role. But it's difficult because obviously, with acting roles, they're few and far between. But I think in terms of the fans are definitely respected, but obviously with a contract, if you've signed something, then obviously that has to be respected purely for the legal formality of it.
Right, and Mark, do you think that bringing Spider-Man to new Venom series is only with the intention to give foundation to this new franchise so that, it can stand well on its own just like the others?
I mean, I don't really know what the tactics are behind it. I'm just excited to see the actual film. I think Venom and Spider-Man together would be a fascinating battle because it's a completely different dynamic. And they've both got very, very different skills. So it'll be interesting to see how they work against each other. But in terms of your question, I'm not really sure what the tactics are behind it, but I think as a film fan and as an actor, I'm just kind of very excited about it.
Right. And this is a question only because in the first part of Venom, we didn't see any connection with the Spider-Man. So that's why we were thinking that maybe it can work as a foundation for Venom to do good as a franchise.
Yeah, well, I think as well, it's probably to do with the fact that, a lot of fans are wanting this to happen. I'm pretty sure there's a connection within maybe the storylines of the books and things like that as well. So I'm sure that there'll be a reason. They won't just randomly be like, let's just throw Venom and Spider-Man together. Like there will be a long past story that, the fans will have been like, we want to see this as a joint thing. But it'll be interesting to see what actually happens. I'm sure we'll find out later this year, but I mean, the anticipation until then is going to be a lot, right?
Right. Mark, it was wonderful having you on board. Thank you very, very much indeed.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
That was Mark Jarvis with his thoughts on the connection between Venom and Spider-Man. And now moving to other story details. Olivia Rodrigo captures the biggest week of 2021 for an album as her debut release, A Sour, opens at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart with 295,000 album units earned in the U.S. in the week ending May 27, according to MRC data. Sour also launches with the second largest streaming week ever for a non-R&B/hip-hop album and second biggest for an album of any genre by a female artist. Sour is Olivia's debut album and was preceded by a trio of top 10 hit singles on the Billboard Hot 100 earlier in 2021. Fans eagerly awaiting the final episode of Kate Winslet's acclaimed drama Mayor of Easttown were made to wait for even longer when streaming service HBO Max crashed just as it was due to start. Winslet plays a detective in the murder mystery, which has been one of the most talked about TV shows of recent months. But many U.S. viewers trying to watch it on HBO Max had to wait several hours. The finale was praised by critics, though, with hailing it as an absolute masterpiece. Sinead O'Connor reportedly is explaining why she infamously ripped up a photo of Pope John Paul II during a 1992 performance on Saturday Night Live. During rehearsal of her late-night performance of Bob Marley's War, O'Connor held up a photo of a Brazilian street kid who had been killed by the police, she writes in the memoir selection. But when it came time for the live SNL show, she ripped the photo of the Pope, stirring widespread outrage. She writes in her memoir that everyone wants a pop star, but she's a protest singer, also mentioning that she just had stuff to get off her chest. The delayed sequel to the thriller A Quiet Place has become the biggest hit at North American box offices since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. A Quiet Place Part 2 made an estimated $48 million between Friday and Sunday. That exceeded predictions and was not far off the $55 million that the film had originally been projected to earn in March 2020. U.S. cinemas have been reopening in recent months, many with reduced capacities, there was uncertainty about whether people would want to go back, especially after getting used to convenience of streaming. And that is it from the newsroom. We will be right back after a quick short break. Don't go anywhere and stay tuned to find out more. Back to our next segment, in which we will be reviewing the 2010 movie The King's Speech. King George VI tries to overcome his stammering problem with the help of speech therapist Lionel and makes himself worthy enough to lead his country through World War II. The film won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Actor in Leading Role, Original Screenplay, and Direction. To discuss a detailed review on the movie, we have entertainment journalist none other than Sam Cook. Sam, welcome to the show.
Hello, Nosheen. Hello from sunny Cardiff.
So, the aura created by the movie is completely mesmerizing. I mean, when you watch the movie, you definitely feel being a part of it. Did you feel that way?
Yes, I'll be honest, when I first watched the film, I felt a little bit uncomfortable because obviously you're watching this man struggle with a stammer, and what Colin Firth does so brilliantly is he really brings that across through the screen. Yeah, I felt a little bit uncomfortable watching it at first, and I was a bit like, oh, I really felt for this man. But yeah, a brilliant film, and you do watch as the stammer kind of is aided throughout the entire film. So yeah, a brilliant film.
Right. And talking about the amazing cast, Colin Firth, such a natural yet versatile actor who never fails to amaze. I mean, we have seen him acting in another movie, Kingsman, in a completely different role, and then as compared to his role in The King's Speech, I mean, an amazing and versatile actor.
Yeah, well, of course, we all knew that Colin Firth was very versatile when he, of course, starred in Pride and Prejudice in this country. He that's essentially, I think, where people started to notice his career, particularly that scene, of course, when he came out of the water. But then, of course, years to come, he started starring in rom-coms, and he was known as this rom-com actor, wasn't he? In films such as Love Actually and various other Richard Curtis comedies. And then suddenly he's catapulted to the mainstream in The King's Speech in 2010. And when the Oscar buzz was kind of developing for Colin Firth, I was just excited because, you know, Colin is a fantastic actor, and it was just nice to see him getting a little bit of recognition for his work, because until then, like I said, he'd only been doing rom-coms and he'd only been doing sort of small television roles. So yeah, it was nice to see him get the recognition. But of course, it's not just Colin Firth in this film who was getting award buzz. You've got the wonderful Geoffrey Rush, who up until that time was known as the villainous Captain Barbossa in Pirates of the Caribbean. So it was lovely to see him in another role. Geoffrey Rush is always an actor I've admired and loved, and I just think he's a fantastic actor, and that is proven here in The King's Speech, where he plays Lionel Logue. And then, of course, you've got the wonderful Helena Bonham Carter, who I think versatile is her middle name. She goes from, of course, Sweeney Todd, she's Alice in Wonderland. She's done loads. In this role, she really does comfort the character of King George VI, played by Colin Firth.
Right. And Sam, we were discussing off camera that there was, you know, a bit of inaccuracy in the movie, but then we also agreed that this was an added drama, where all of these actors, which you just named, they added the beauty in developing the story. So how much do you see the story developing because of the supporting actors? We're not exclusively talking about Colin here, but we're talking about Helena, we're talking about Geoffrey Rush, Guy Pearce, Jennifer L.A., so yeah.
Yeah, I think they definitely helped the film. I mean, you know, the film is called The King's Speech, but the speech element comes from Geoffrey Rush's character, Lionel Logue, who helps the the king actually develop his speech. And there's that scene, isn't there, at the start of the film where King George VI and Lionel Logue are, of course, seeing how bad the problem is, and then Lionel Logue gets King George VI to wear the earphones and plays music, and in that scene you actually do kind of see the relationship between Lionel and between King George VI. But upon watching the film, I actually read the biography that it was based on afterwards, and I realized that the actual in real life, the relationship between King George VI and Lionel Logue, although they had a wonderful relationship, it wasn't it happened much later in time. It didn't happen at that point in time. So yeah, kind of obviously every film is going to have historical inaccuracies, unless of course if it is a drama, it has to, because you do kind of have to keep that viewer engaged, and you do kind of,
and that's where the story comes out from, you know.
It is. That is where the story comes out from, and I think you do kind of need that dramatic element. So, and that's how you sell a film. So that's why they've done that.
Right. And talking about the 4 Academy Awards that the movie won, I mean, when you begin watching the movie, you get the feeling that, okay, now this is some Oscar-worthy content that we are looking at.
Yeah. Well, you say Oscar-worthy content there. I think Oscar-worthy content is a vague phrase, if I'm honest, because any film I can watch a film, and just because it's shot in a certain way, I could think, oh, this is going to win the Oscars. But I think I personally think that we shouldn't be in a time like that. We should be in a film where you watch a film and you go, oh, this piece of film that has been created has to be original, and I think we shouldn't be looking before as to what as to what that film is going to win an Oscar or not. But yeah, certainly the King's Speech, definitely I did get that feel when I saw the trailers that it was going to be Oscar-worthy content. Just from the performances of Colin Firth, Geoffrey Rush, and Helena Bonham Carter, you know, they're powerhouses, all of them. Yeah. So you do get that feel that it could win an Oscar, and it did. Colin Firth, of course, did win the Best Actor Oscar. Am I right in thinking that Tom Hooper, did he win Best Director for the film?
Yes, the movie won the Oscar for Best Director as well as the Best Screenplay.
Yeah, so like you know, I think because Tom Hooper at the time was fairly unknown. This was before he did the likes of Les Miserables and Cats, but we won't talk about Cats. But yeah, he was a fairly unknown director. So in terms of him winning an Oscar, you do just kind of root for the underdog in that respect.
Right. Now, 3 major reasons why would you recommend this movie to our viewers to watch?
Oh God, compelling story. That is one of the main reasons. Brilliant acting, and you're never bored throughout it. And that final scene, I'm not going to give too many spoilers, but read the history books. That final scene is just powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And also, The King's Speech continued a stunning 3 weeks atop the UK box office and earned over £3 million for 4 consecutive weekends. That's how great it was in the business.
Yeah, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it was a success, and with that Oscar buzz, people do get to the cinema. Not in today's times at the moment, of course, because COVID. But people do get to the cinema when that Oscar buzz is being developed, and it was no doubt going to do well.
Right, Sam, it was a brilliant review. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And that was Sam Cook with his review on the 2010 movie The King's Speech. And that is it from today's episode. We hope you liked it. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media link mentioned down below. We will be back with some more interesting content next time. Until then, take care and goodbye.